A widowed millionaire paid a virgin woman to bear his child, but when the baby was born, he cried. The corner office on the 42nd floor of Harrington Tower stood as a testament to power and isolation. Daniel Harrington gazed through the floor-to-ceiling windows at the Manhattan skyline, his reflection a ghost against the gathering dusk. The city lights began their nightly dance, but he remained unmoved by their beauty. 3 years had passed since Rachel's death, and still, every sunset felt like watching her slip away again. His phone buzzed. Another message from the board of directors. They were getting increasingly vocal about the future of Harrington Enterprises, about legacy and succession. Daniel's jaw tightened as he picked up the device, scanning the message with cold efficiency. The words, heir and future, jumped out at him like accusations. At 42, Daniel had built an empire of steel and glass, transforming his father's modest real estate company into a billion-dollar corporation. Yet here he stood, alone in his tower, with no one to pass it to. The irony wasn't lost on him. Everything he'd built to honor Rachel's memory now served as a reminder of their shared dreams that died with her. The intercom buzzed, interrupting his dark musings. "Mr. Harrington, your 7 p.m. appointment is here." "Send her in," he responded, his voice carrying the practiced neutrality he'd perfected over the years. The door opened, and Emma Mitchell walked in. Daniel had reviewed her file thoroughly. 28 years old, registered nurse at Mount Sinai, impeccable background check. What the file hadn't prepared him for was the quiet dignity she carried herself with, despite the obvious nervousness in her hands as she clutched her small handbag. "Please sit." Daniel gestured to one of the leather chairs facing his desk. He remained standing, maintaining the power dynamic he'd grown accustomed to in all his dealings. "I assume Mr. Cooper explained the basics of why you're here?" Emma's spine straightened almost imperceptibly. "He did, though I must admit I'm still trying to understand why someone like you would need to make this kind of arrangement." Daniel moved to his chair, each movement measured and controlled. "Efficiency," he stated flatly. "I need an heir. Traditional methods of finding a suitable partner would be time-consuming and emotionally complicated. This way is cleaner." A flash of something, disapproval, challenge, crossed Emma's face. "There's nothing clean about creating a life, Mr. Harrington, even with all your contracts and conditions." Her directness surprised him. Most people in his office tiptoed around his power, his wealth, his loss. But here was this woman, in desperate need of money if his investigation was correct, daring to question his approach. "Your mother's medical bills," he said, watching her face carefully. "Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The experimental treatment in Switzerland cost $2 million. That's why you're here, isn't it?" Emma's hands tightened in her lap, but her voice remained steady. "Yes. But that doesn't mean I'll agree to anything without understanding exactly what you're proposing." Daniel reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a thick document. $5 million, $2 million up front for your mother's treatment, the remaining $3 million upon successful delivery of a healthy child, full medical coverage throughout the pregnancy and after, a separate trust fund for the child's future. In return, you carry my heir and maintain absolute discretion about our arrangement. "And my role after?" Emma asked, her green eyes meeting his directly. "Co-parenting rights if you wish them. Or you can choose to step away completely after fulfilling the contract. The choice would be yours." Emma's laugh was soft but bitter. "You make it sound like a business transaction." "Isn't that what you want?" Daniel countered. "No emotional complications, no messy attachments, just a straightforward exchange that benefits us both." Standing up, Emma moved to the window, her reflection overlapping with the city lights. "My mother raised me alone, Mr. Harrington. She worked 3 jobs sometimes, but she never once made me feel like a burden or an obligation. The thought of creating a child who might feel that way," she turned back to face him. "How can you be so certain you won't resent this child for not being born of love?" The question hit him like a physical blow, stirring memories he'd worked hard to suppress. Rachel's laugh, their plans for a family, the accident that stole it all away. "Love is irrelevant," he said finally. "What matters is providing security, opportunity, and a clear purpose. I can guarantee all of those things." "And what about joy?" Emma challenged. "What about warmth and connection? Are those irrelevant too?" Daniel stood, his patience wearing thin. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm not looking for parenting advice. I'm offering you a solution to your mother's situation. If you're not interested, there are other candidates." Emma was quiet for a long moment, conflict evident in her expression. Finally, she spoke. her voice soft but firm. I have conditions of my own. Go on. First, no intimacy beyond what's medically necessary for conception. Everything will be done through proper medical procedures. She paused, gauging his reaction. When he nodded, she continued. Second, I want to be involved in the child's life, but with clear boundaries. No pretending we're something we're not. No forced family dynamics. Third, I want a clause that protects both the child and me from any future claims that we trapped you into this arrangement. Daniel felt a flicker of respect for her foresight. Anything else? Yes. Emma met his gaze steadily. I want your word that you'll try to love this child. Not just provide for them, but actually love them. They deserve that much. The request hung in the air between them, heavy with implications Daniel wasn't ready to face. I'll have my lawyers draw up the papers with your conditions included, he said finally, sidestepping her last demand. Review them with your own legal counsel. If everything is satisfactory, we can proceed next week. Emma nodded, gathering her bag. At the door she paused. Mr. Harrington, whatever happened to make you this way, I'm sorry for it, but I hope you understand that once this agreement is signed, it's not just your life you're arranging, it's an innocent child's too. After she left, Daniel stood at the window again, watching the city lights blur through eyes that burned with unexpected emotion. Emma's words echoed in his mind, mixing with memories of Rachel's voice. Love isn't a business deal, Danny. It's the only thing that makes any of this worth it. He pulled out his phone and dialed his lawyer's number. Lawrence, start the paperwork, but add one more clause. A requirement for weekly dinners throughout the pregnancy, for medical monitoring purposes. As he hung up, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just set something in motion that went far beyond his carefully controlled plans. In the reflection of the window, Rachel's ghost seemed to smile. The sterile walls of Mount Sinai Hospital's oncology ward felt especially oppressive today. Emma Mitchell sat beside her mother's bed, holding a hand that seemed more fragile with each passing visit. The steady beep of monitors provided a rhythmic backdrop to her swirling thoughts. You don't have to do this, sweetheart, Catherine Mitchell whispered, her voice barely audible above the medical equipment. Despite the ravages of cancer, her eyes remained sharp, seeing straight through her daughter's careful facade. I've lived a good life. Emma squeezed her mother's hand, fighting back tears. The treatment in Switzerland has an 80% success rate, Mom. That's worth everything to me. She deliberately avoided mentioning how she planned to pay for it. The contract with Daniel Harrington sat unsigned in her bag, feeling like a lead weight. There's something you're not telling me, Catherine pressed, studying Emma's face. I may be sick, but I still know my daughter. Before Emma could respond, a nurse entered to check Catherine's vitals. Emma watched the familiar routine, remembering all the times she'd performed the same tasks for other patients' families. Now, sitting on the other side of that equation felt surreal. The nurse finished her checks and left, offering Emma a sympathetic smile. These days everyone looked at her that way, with pity, with concern, with the unspoken understanding that time was running out. I got approved for a loan, Emma lied, hating herself for each word. A special medical program. Everything's going to be fine. Catherine's eyes narrowed slightly, but she didn't press further. Instead, she changed the subject. You've always taken care of everyone else, Emma. First me, then your patients. When are you going to let someone take care of you? The question hit too close to home. Emma stood abruptly, adjusting her mother's blankets to hide her discomfort. I need to head to work. Try to rest, okay? But instead of going to her shift at the hospital, Emma found herself walking the streets of Manhattan, the contract in her bag feeling heavier with each step. The terms were more than fair, generous even. Daniel Harrington's lawyers had incorporated all her conditions, adding several provisions she hadn't even thought to request. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel's assistant. Mr. Harrington requests confirmation of tomorrow's appointment to finalize the agreement. Emma stopped walking, finding herself in front of a small park. Children played on the swings while their parents watched from nearby benches. One father was teaching his daughter to ride a bike, his hand steady on the seat as she wobbled forward. The scene made her chest ache. What kind of father would Daniel Harrington be? The man she'd met seemed more automaton than human, his emotions locked away behind expensive suits and cold efficiency. Yet something in his eyes when she'd mentioned love, a flicker of pain so raw it had taken her breath away, suggested depths he worked hard to hide. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was the hospital's billing department. Another gentle reminder of the mounting costs. Emma found a bench and pulled out the contract. flipping to the last page where her signature would go. The terms laid out her role clearly. She would undergo artificial insemination using Daniel's genetic material. Regular medical checkups would be conducted at the city's most prestigious private clinic. Weekly dinners with Daniel were mandatory, officially for medical monitoring, though Emma suspected there was more to that requirement than he'd admitted. After the birth, she would have options. She could remain involved as a co-parent, with clearly defined boundaries and responsibilities. Or she could step away completely, her financial compensation ensuring she'd never need to worry about resources again. The child would be provided for either way, with trusts and protections that demonstrated at least some level of forethought about their future well-being. Emma's phone rang. Her mother's oncologist this time. "Ms. Mitchell, we've received the preliminary approval for the Swiss clinic. They can take your mother next month, but they need the financial arrangements confirmed within the week." "I understand," Emma replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "The funds will be transferred by Friday." After hanging up, she stared at the signature line again. In the distance, the father was still teaching his daughter to ride, his voice carrying across the park as he encouraged her. "It's okay to be scared, sweetie. Just keep moving forward." Emma took out a pen. Her hand trembled slightly as she signed her name, the ink stark against the white paper. With each letter, she tried to convince herself this was just another kind of caregiving. For her mother, for a child who didn't yet exist, maybe even for a man who'd forgotten how to feel. The next evening found her back in Daniel's office, the signed contract between them on his desk. The city lights were just beginning to emerge against the darkening sky, much like the night they'd first met. "Everything appears to be in order," Daniel said, his signature joining hers with practiced efficiency. "The first transfer to cover your mother's treatment will be completed by morning." Emma nodded, unable to speak past the tightness in her throat. This was really happening. "The clinic has an opening next week for the first attempt," Daniel continued, his tone as businesslike as if he were discussing a real estate deal. "My assistant will send you the schedule and necessary preparation instructions." "And the dinners?" Emma asked, forcing herself to meet his gaze. "When do those start?" Something flickered in Daniel's expression, that same hint of carefully hidden emotion she'd glimpsed before. "Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. The restaurant details will be sent to you." He paused, then added, "Unless you have other plans?" "No," Emma replied. "No other plans." As she stood to leave, Daniel spoke again. "Ms. Mitchell, thank you for agreeing to this arrangement." Emma turned back, studying him. In the fading light, with his guard slightly lowered, he looked less like the powerful CEO and more like a man carrying wounds too deep to name. "Don't thank me yet, Mr. Harrington, we haven't even begun." Later that night in her small apartment, Emma sat on her bed and finally allowed herself to cry. Not from sadness exactly, but from the overwhelming weight of everything. Hope for her mother's recovery, fear for the future, and a strange, unexpected ache for the lonely man in his tower who thought he could order up a family like a business acquisition. Her hand drifted to her stomach, still flat but now holding the potential for profound change. "I promise," she whispered to the empty room. "Whatever happens, you'll be loved, even if I have to teach your father how to do it." Across the city in his penthouse apartment, Daniel Harrington stood at another window holding a photo of Rachel. "I'm sorry," he murmured to her smiling image. "I know this isn't what we planned, but I don't know how to do this any other way anymore." The photo, like always, offered no answers, but for the first time in 3 years, the silence felt less like an ending and more like a pause before something new began. The restaurant Daniel had chosen for their first mandatory dinner was exactly what Emma expected: exclusive, elegant, and thoroughly intimidating. Le Bernardin's soft lighting and hushed atmosphere made her feel immediately out of place in her simple black dress, a stark contrast to the other patrons in their designer wear. Daniel was already seated when she arrived, his attention focused on a tablet displaying what looked like property development plans. He stood as she approached, his manners impeccable even if his expression remained distant. "You're 3 minutes early," he noted, closing the tablet's cover. "I appreciate punctuality." Emma resisted the urge to roll her eyes. "Is that going in my performance review?" A flash of surprise crossed his face before he caught himself. "I didn't mean—" He paused, seeming to recalibrate. "Would you prefer wine or sparkling water?" "Water," Emma replied, settling into her chair. "Given the circumstances, I should probably start getting used to it." The waiter appeared, professionally concealing any curiosity about their obvious discomfort with each other. As he recited the evening's specials, Emma studied Daniel surreptitiously. In the restaurant's intimate lighting, he looked less severe than in his office, though no less guarded. "The clinic called today," Daniel said once they'd ordered. "They've scheduled the first procedure for next Tuesday." Emma's hand tightened around her water glass. "That's soon. Is that a problem?" "The contract specified." "I know what the contract specified," Emma interrupted. "I just thought—" She trailed off, unsure how to explain the strange mix of emotions she was feeling. Daniel leaned back slightly, his expression unreadable. "You're having second thoughts." "No," Emma said quickly. "Not exactly. It's just becoming very real, very fast." She took a breath, deciding honesty was the best approach. "I visited my mother today, told her about the special medical program that's funding her treatment. I hate lying to her." Something shifted in Daniel's eyes. "You haven't told her about our arrangement? Would you?" Emma challenged. "How exactly does one explain to their mother that they're essentially becoming a surrogate for a stranger?" The waiters returned with their appetizers, provided a brief reprieve from the tension. Emma focused on her plate, trying to appreciate what was undoubtedly excellent food, though it all tasted like cardboard in her mouth. "My mother died when I was 12, Daniel said suddenly, his voice so quiet Emma almost missed it. "Cancer. We couldn't afford the treatments that might have saved her." Emma looked up, caught off guard by this unexpected revelation. Daniel was staring at his plate, his usual mask of control slipping slightly. "Is that why you agreed to fund my mother's treatment?" she asked softly. "No." His response was immediate, his walls visibly rebuilding. "This is a business arrangement, Ms. Mitchell. Nothing more." "Emma." "What?" "My name is Emma," she said firmly. "If we're going to create a child together, even through clinical means, you should at least use my first name." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "Emma," he said finally, as if testing the sound. "You should know that once the procedure is successful, I'll expect weekly updates beyond these dinners. Medical reports, nutrition logs. I'm a nurse, Mr. Harrington. I know how to take care of myself during pregnancy." "Daniel." It was Emma's turn to look surprised. "If I'm to call you Emma," he explained, a hint of something almost like humor in his voice, "then you should call me Daniel when we're not in the office." The main course arrived, giving Emma time to process this small shift in their dynamic. As they ate, she found herself wondering about the boy who'd lost his mother, and how he'd become the man sitting across from her. "Tell me about your company," she said, trying to bridge the silence. The tablet earlier, it looked like blueprints. For the first time that evening, Daniel's expression showed genuine animation. He spoke about a new development project, affordable housing combined with green spaces, his usual clipped tones giving way to actual enthusiasm. Emma watched the transformation with fascination, glimpsing perhaps what Rachel might have seen in him. "Sorry," he caught himself eventually. "You probably don't care about zoning regulations and sustainability metrics." "Actually, it's nice to see you care about something," Emma said honestly. "I was beginning to wonder." Daniel's face closed off again, but not before Emma caught a flash of vulnerability in his eyes. "Caring complicates things," he said quietly. "Life is complicated," Emma countered. "That's what makes it worth living." The rest of dinner passed in a strange dance of advance and retreat, moments of almost connection followed by careful withdrawal. As they waited for the valet to bring Daniel's car, he turned to her suddenly. "About your mother," he said. "You don't have to lie to her." "Not completely. Tell her I'm an investor in medical technology interested in funding promising treatments." "It's not entirely untrue." Emma felt unexpected tears prick her eyes. "Thank you. I'll have my driver take you home. I can take a taxi." "Emma." His tone brooked no argument. "You're carrying precious cargo now, or you will be soon. Let me do this much." In the back of the luxury car, Emma watched the city lights blur past, her mind racing. One dinner and already the lines were blurring. Daniel Harrington was supposed to remain a distant figure, a means to an end. Instead, she'd glimpsed the human being behind the facade, wounded, complex, and far more dangerous to her emotional equilibrium than she'd anticipated. Her phone buzzed with a text from the hospital. Her mother was having a good night, the nurse reported. For the first time in months, she'd eaten a full dinner. Emma closed her eyes, one hand drifting to her stomach. "Worth it," she whispered to herself. "No matter what happens, it's worth it." Across town, Daniel stood in his penthouse, a glass of scotch untouched in his hand. Rachel's photo watched him from the mantel as he retrieved a small box from his safe. Inside lay a pair of tiny baby shoes, the ones he and Rachel had bought the day before the accident, their first purchase for the child they'd planned to have. "I'm trying," he told the photo softly. "I don't know if I'm doing it right, but I'm trying." The shoes felt impossibly small in his hands, a reminder of dreams long buried. He returned them to the safe, but left Rachel's photo out. Tomorrow would bring doctor's appointments and legal papers, the clinical reality of what he'd set in motion. But tonight, he allowed himself to remember what it felt like to hope. The private fertility clinic gleamed with wealth and sterility. Emma sat in the consultation room, her hands clasped tightly in her lap as Dr. Victoria Chen reviewed their file. Daniel stood by the window, his posture rigid, creating a careful distance between them. "Your preliminary tests look excellent, Ms. Mitchell," Dr. Chen said, her professional smile warming her elegant features. "Given your age and health, I'm quite optimistic about our chances of success with the first attempt." Emma nodded, hyper-aware of Daniel's presence behind her. The past week had been a blur of blood tests, ultrasounds, and hormone injections, all coordinated with military precision by his efficient staff. She'd barely had time to process the reality of what they were about to do. "Mr. Harrington," Dr. Chen turned to Daniel, "your tests are also optimal. I see no potential complications from either party." "Excellent," Daniel replied, his voice carrying that familiar note of controlled authority. "When can we proceed?" "Today, if Ms. Mitchell is ready." Dr. Chen looked at Emma questioningly. "The timing is perfect with your cycle." Emma's heart jumped. She'd known this was coming, had prepared herself mentally, but the immediacy of it still took her breath away. "Today? Unless you need more time," Daniel said, and something in his tone made her turn to look at him. For a brief moment, she caught a glimpse of uncertainty in his expression, before it vanished behind his usual mask. "No," Emma said firmly. "Today is fine." The next hour passed in a surreal haze of medical procedures and paperwork. Emma changed into a hospital gown, the material somehow both expensive and uncomfortable. As she lay on the examination table, waiting for Dr. Chen to return, she found herself wishing for something she hadn't expected: Daniel's presence. As if summoned by her thoughts, there was a knock at the door. "Emma?" His voice was uncharacteristically hesitant. "May I come in?" "Yes," she called out, tugging the blanket higher. Daniel entered, still in his impeccable suit but looking somehow less composed than usual. He stood awkwardly near the door, as if unsure of his place in this sterile room. "I wanted to," he began, then stopped. Started again. "That is, I thought you might want—" Emma had never seen him struggle for words before. It made him seem more human, more approachable. "Stay," she said softly. "Please." He moved to stand near her head, careful not to touch her but close enough that she could feel his presence. Neither spoke, but the silence felt different than their usual awkward pauses, more companionable, almost peaceful. Dr. Chen returned with her team, and the procedure began. Emma fixed her gaze on the ceiling, counting tiles to distract herself from the clinical intimacy of the moment. Suddenly, she felt something brush her hand and realized Daniel had moved closer, his fingers hovering near hers in an unspoken offer of support. Without looking at him, Emma turned her hand, palm up. After a moment's hesitation, Daniel's fingers interlaced with hers. His grip was firm, grounding, and she found herself grateful for this unexpected anchor. "All done," Dr. Chen announced a few minutes later. "Everything went perfectly. Now we wait 2 weeks to confirm if the procedure was successful." 2 weeks. 14 days of wondering if this moment had changed their lives forever. Emma felt Daniel's hand slip away as the medical team began their post-procedure routine. "I'll have my driver take you home," he said back to his businesslike tone. "You should rest today." "I have a shift at the hospital tonight," Emma protested. "No, you don't. I spoke with your supervisor. You have the next 3 days off, with pay." Emma started to object, then stopped herself. This was part of their agreement, his right to make certain decisions about her health during this process. Still, something in her rebelled against the high-handedness of it. "I'm perfectly capable of working," she said, keeping her voice level. Daniel's expression tightened. The contract stipulates reasonable medical precautions. One shift at the hospital isn't going to— Please." The word hung between them, surprising them both. Daniel looked away first, his jaw working as if the plea had been dragged from him against his will. "Just take the time," he continued more quietly, "for both our peace of mind." Emma studied him, seeing beyond the commanding exterior to something else. Concern, perhaps, or fear carefully masked as control. All right, she conceded. 3 days. Later, settled in the back of his luxury car, Emma watched the city pass by in a blur. The driver, a discreet older man named James, kept his eyes firmly on the road, giving her privacy with her thoughts. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. Dinner tomorrow? 7 p.m.? Same place? Emma smiled slightly, remembering their last dinner and its unexpected moments of connection. Yes, she typed back. But can we try somewhere less formal? I don't think I can handle that level of fancy right now. There was a long pause before his reply came. I know a place. Casual but private. James will pick you up at 6:45. Emma leaned back against the leather seats, one hand resting lightly on her stomach. In 2 weeks, they would know if this clinical encounter had created a new life. But something else had been created today, too. A crack in Daniel's carefully constructed walls. A moment of genuine human connection. At home, she found a delivery waiting. Inside the elegant package was a soft cashmere throw in a gentle shade of blue, with a note in Daniel's precise handwriting. For your rest days, the apartment can get cold. Emma wrapped herself in the blanket, settling onto her couch with a cup of tea. The throw was exactly the kind of luxury she would never buy for herself. Practical yet indulgent, like Daniel's other arrangements for her. But the thoughtfulness of it, the fact that he'd noticed her shivering slightly in her apartment during his brief visit to sign additional papers, touched something in her. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from her mother's doctor in Switzerland. The first round of treatment was showing promising results. Emma clutched the phone to her chest, tears of relief and hope mixing with all the other emotions of this overwhelming day. Across the city, Daniel stood in his office, unable to focus on work. The memory of Emma's hand in his kept intruding on his thoughts. It had been so long since he'd offered comfort to another person, so long since he'd allowed himself that kind of contact. Rachel's accident had taught him the danger of emotional connections, the devastating cost of caring too much. And yet, he found himself opening his safe, taking out the tiny baby's shoes again. This time, instead of pain, he felt something different as he held them. Possibility, perhaps, or the first stirrings of a hope he'd thought long dead. What am I doing, Rachel? He whispered to the empty room. But for once, the silence that answered him felt less like an accusation and more like a gentle nudge forward. 8 days into their 2-week wait, Emma found herself in an unexpected location, Daniel's penthouse kitchen. Their usual restaurant had been swarmed by paparazzi following a celebrity sighting, and Daniel, ever protective of their privacy, had suggested an alternative. You cook? Emma asked, watching with undisguised surprise as Daniel moved confidently around the gleaming kitchen, handling ingredients with unexpected skill. Rachel taught me, he replied, then froze, as if the words had escaped without permission. It was the first time he'd mentioned his late wife's name in Emma's presence. Instead of letting the moment become awkward, Emma settled onto one of the kitchen island's stools. What was she like? She asked softly. Daniel's hands stilled over the vegetables he was chopping. For a moment, Emma thought he wouldn't answer. Then, she loved life, everything about it, even the messy parts. His knife resumed its steady rhythm, especially the messy parts. Is that why you live like this now? Emma gestured at the pristine apartment where everything was perfectly ordered and controlled. Because she loved mess? The knife paused again. You're very direct, Emma. Would you prefer I wasn't? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Actually, no, it's refreshing. He added the vegetables to a pan, the sizzle filling the silence. Rachel would have liked you. The comment hung between them, heavy with implications neither was ready to examine. Emma watched him cook, noting how this simple domestic task seemed to soften his usual rigid demeanor. I've been having dreams, she said suddenly, about the baby. I know it's too early to know if the procedure worked, but Daniel turned from the stove, his expression unguarded for once. What kind of dreams? Just feelings, mostly. A sense of someone new. She touched her stomach unconsciously. Is that crazy? No. His voice was unusually gentle. Rachel used to say she knew right from the start when we... He stopped, pain flickering across his face. You were trying for a baby? When she died? Daniel turned back to the stove, his shoulders tense. We had just found out she was pregnant, 3 days before the accident. The revelation landed like a physical blow. Emma's heart ached for the man before her, understanding now the depths of what he'd lost. Not just a wife, but a future, a family, dreams just beginning to take shape. Daniel, Don't. His voice was sharp. I don't want pity. It's not pity, Emma said firmly. It's empathy. There's a difference. He was quiet for a long moment, focusing intently on the food. When he finally spoke, his voice was controlled again, but not as distant as usual. Dinner's ready. I hope you like pasta alla vodka. The meal was excellent, though Emma noticed Daniel barely touched his portion. They ate at the kitchen island rather than the formal dining room. Another surprising choice that made the evening feel more intimate than their restaurant meetings. Tell me about your mother, Daniel said as they finished. How is the treatment progressing? Emma's face lit up. The doctors are optimistic. Her latest scans show the tumors are responding. She's even regained some weight. That's good news. He hesitated, then added, Would you like to visit her in Switzerland? I can't leave right now, not until we know if... Afterward, he clarified. If the procedure was successful, you could visit during your second trimester. It's safe to travel then. Emma stared at him, touched by the offer and the thought behind it. You've researched pregnancy travel guidelines? Daniel looked almost embarrassed. I research everything. Of course you do. She smiled, then sobered. The doctors say the first round of treatment will be crucial. These next few weeks coincide with our waiting period, Daniel finished. Both our futures hanging in the balance. The observation created another moment of connection between them. Two people waiting, hoping, their lives suspended between possibility and fear. Later, as James drove her home, Emma reflected on the evening. She'd seen new sides of Daniel. The capable cook, the grieving husband, the man who researched pregnancy guidelines and thought about her mother's treatment timeline. Each glimpse made it harder to maintain the emotional distance their arrangement required. Her phone chimed with a message from her mother. Had a good day today. The nurses here remind me of you. So caring. Miss you, sweetheart. Emma's vision blurred with tears. Everything felt so complicated. Her gratitude for Daniel's help warring with guilt over the deception. Her professional detachment crumbling in the face of his carefully hidden pain. At home, she found herself drawn to the blue cashmere throw, now a constant comfort during her evening rest. As she wrapped it around herself, her phone buzzed again. This time it was Daniel. Thank you. For asking about Rachel. For wanting to know. Emma stared at the message, understanding the courage it must have taken him to send it. After a long moment, she replied, Thank you for telling me. For letting me see. Across the city, Daniel stood at his bedroom window, phone in hand. Rachel's photo sat on his nightstand. But tonight, for the first time in 3 years, he didn't feel the need to apologize to it. Instead, he found himself thinking about Emma's dreams. Her intuitive connection to a possibility that terrified and excited him in equal measure. His hand drifted to the kitchen counter, where Emma had sat, bringing life and warmth to his sterile space. The apartment felt different now, less like a monument to loss and more like a place where new memories might be made. The thought should have frightened him. Instead, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Anticipation. 6 more days until they would know. 6 days that could change everything. Or leave them both nursing new wounds. In the quiet of his penthouse, Daniel finally admitted what he'd been avoiding. He wasn't sure which outcome scared him more, failure or success that might force him to feel again. The waiting room at Dr. Chen's clinic felt smaller today, though nothing had physically changed. Emma sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, while Daniel paced by the window. 14 days had passed since the procedure. 14 days of wondering, hoping, and trying not to think about the growing complexity of their arrangement. Mr. Harrington, Ms. Mitchell? Dr. Chen's assistant appeared at the door. We're ready for you. Emma stood, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. As they followed the assistant down the hallway, she felt Daniel's presence close behind her, his usual confident stride matching her uncertain steps. Dr. Chen waited in her office, a folder open on her desk. Her professional smile revealed nothing as she gestured for them to sit. Emma found herself reaching for Daniel's hand without thinking. He took it, his grip firm and steadying. Well, Dr. Chen began. I have your results. She paused, her smile warming. Congratulations. You're pregnant. The world seemed to tilt slightly. Emma's grip on Daniel's hand tightened, and she felt him squeeze back. However, Dr. Chen continued, her expression turning serious. There's something else you should know. She turned her monitor toward them, showing an ultrasound image. We're detecting two distinct embryonic sacs. Two? Emma's voice sounded distant to her own ears. Twins, Daniel said, his usual controlled tone wavering slightly. Dr. Chen nodded. Both embryos appear healthy and well-positioned. Of course, it's very early, and multiple pregnancies carry additional considerations. The doctor's voice faded into background noise as Emma tried to process this news. Not just pregnant, but twins. Two babies. Two lives she would help bring into the world. Two children for Daniel to... Daniel. She turned to look at him and found his face uncharacteristically pale, his eyes fixed on the ultrasound image. I'll give you both a moment, Dr. Chen said tactfully, standing. When you're ready, we'll discuss prenatal care and next steps. After she left, silence filled the room. Emma realized they were still holding hands but couldn't bring herself to let go. Daniel? He blinked, seeming to come back to himself. Two, he said softly. Then, with more of his usual precision, this changes the logistics considerably. We'll need to revise the contract to account for... Stop. Emma's voice was gentle but firm. Just stop thinking about contracts for a minute. How do you feel? Daniel stood abruptly, breaking their connection. He moved to the window, his back rigid. Feelings are irrelevant. What matters is ensuring proper care and preparation for both. Daniel. Emma followed him, placing a hand on his arm. Look at me. He turned, and Emma saw it then. The raw emotion he was trying desperately to control. Fear, joy, grief, hope, all warring in eyes that usually revealed nothing. Rachel and I, he began, his voice barely audible. We always talked about having two, a boy and a girl. She said, he stopped, swallowing hard. She said she wanted a noisy house, full of life. Emma felt tears spring to her eyes. Without thinking, she wrapped her arms around him. For a moment, he stood frozen. Then slowly, his arms came around her, holding her with infinite care. I'm scared too, she whispered against his chest. His heart beat steadily under her ear, his expensive suit absorbing her tears. They stayed like that for several long moments, sharing fears too big for words. A knock at the door made them step apart. Doctor, Chen returned, pretending not to notice their emotional states as she launched into detailed medical instructions. Emma tried to focus, but her mind kept drifting to the feeling of Daniel's arms around her, the way he'd held her like she was something precious. The rest of the appointment passed in a blur of prescriptions, appointments, and dietary guidelines. As they left the clinic, Daniel's hand found the small of her back, guiding her through the lobby with a protectiveness that felt new. I'll have James take you home, he said as they reached the street. You should rest. Actually, Emma said, gathering her courage, I need to go to the hospital, to see my mother. Daniel's expression shifted. You're going to tell her? I have to. She'll know something's different as soon as she sees me. Emma met his gaze. Would you come with me? The request seemed to startle him. You want me there? You're part of this, Emma said simply. However unconventional it is, you're part of my family now. These babies make it so. Something profound crossed Daniel's face. Longing, perhaps, or the recognition of a truth he'd been avoiding. After a long moment, he nodded. Let me make some calls first. In the car, Emma watched the city scroll past, one hand resting protectively over her stomach. Two babies. The thought still felt surreal. I meant what I said, she spoke quietly. About family. Daniel was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't respond. Then, I haven't had a family since Rachel died. I'm not sure I remember how. Maybe that's okay, Emma suggested. Maybe we can figure it out together. He turned to look at her, his expression more open than she'd ever seen it. Your mother, what should I say to her? The truth, Emma said firmly, or at least part of it, that you're helping fund her treatment through medical investment, that we're having twins through a carefully planned arrangement, that you'll ensure they're cared for and loved. And she won't judge? The arrangement? Emma smiled softly. My mother raised me to believe that love comes in many forms. That family is what you make it. As James navigated through traffic, Emma felt Daniel's hand cover hers where it rested between them. The gesture felt natural now, as if their bodies were learning a new language their minds were still struggling to understand. Two babies, he murmured almost to himself. A noisy house. Full of life, Emma completed the thought, watching as something like peace settled over his features. They rode the rest of the way in comfortable silence, both lost in thoughts of the future taking shape before them. a future neither had imagined possible just 14 days ago. Mount Sinai Hospital's private wing felt different today. Emma led Daniel through familiar corridors, watching him take in the environment where she spent so much of her life. His usual commanding presence seemed slightly muted here, where wealth held no power over illness and loss. Outside her mother's room, Emma paused. Ready? Daniel straightened his tie, a nervous gesture she'd never seen before. What if she disapproves? Then we'll handle it, Emma said softly. Together. Catherine Mitchell was sitting up in bed when they entered, looking stronger than Emma had seen her in months. The Swiss treatments were clearly working, her eyes were bright, and some color had returned to her cheeks. Emma! Her face lit up, then curiosity crossed her features as she noticed Daniel. And who's this? Mom, this is Daniel Harrington. Emma moved to kiss her mother's cheek, then stepped back to stand near Daniel. He's the investor I told you about, the one funding your treatment. Catherine's sharp eyes moved between them, seeing more than Emma had intended to reveal. The medical investment program, she said slowly. I had a feeling there was more to that story. Mrs. Mitchell, Daniel stepped forward, his voice carrying a gentleness Emma hadn't heard before. Your daughter has given me an extraordinary gift. The least I could do was ensure you received the best possible care. Gift? Catherine's gaze fixed on Emma, then understanding dawned. Oh, sweetheart. Are you? Emma took a deep breath. Yes, Mom. I'm pregnant. She felt Daniel move closer, lending silent support. With twins. Catherine was quiet for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she held out her hand to Daniel. Tell me about yourself, Mr. Harrington. Tell me why my daughter chose to do this for you. Daniel hesitated, then took the offered hand, settling into the chair beside her bed. Emma watched in amazement as his carefully constructed walls began to lower. I lost my wife 3 years ago, he began quietly. And with her, I lost everything that mattered. Love, hope, the future we'd planned together. He glanced at Emma. Your daughter reminded me that family can be built in different ways, that love isn't always what we expect it to be. And the babies? Catherine pressed. Will they be loved? Mom, Emma started to protest, but Daniel raised his hand. It's a fair question, he said. Mrs. Mitchell, I've spent 3 years building walls to protect myself from loss. Your daughter has already begun to break them down. These children, he paused, emotion making his voice rough. These children will never doubt they're loved. I promise you that. Catherine studied him for a long moment, then smiled. Well, you certainly know how to give a good answer. She turned to Emma. Come here, sweetheart. Let me look at you properly. As Emma moved closer, Catherine reached out to touch her stomach gently. Twins, she marveled. No wonder you've been glowing lately. I thought it was just the relief about my treatments. You're not disappointed in me? Emma asked hesitantly. Disappointed? Catherine's laugh was warm. My brilliant, compassionate daughter found a way to help everyone she cares about, including herself. How could I be disappointed? She looked at Daniel again. Though I do have conditions. Daniel straightened. Of course, anything. First, you'll call me Catherine. Mrs. Mitchell makes me feel ancient. Her eyes twinkled. Second, I expect to be very involved in these babies' lives, even if I have to FaceTime from Switzerland. That's non-negotiable, Daniel agreed, a rare smile touching his lips. And third, Catherine's voice softened, you'll take care of my daughter, not just financially, emotionally. She gives so much to others. She needs someone to give back. Emma felt tears threatening. Mom, I mean it, Catherine insisted. Promise me, Daniel. I promise, he said solemnly, and something in his tone made Emma's heart skip. They spent the next hour talking, Catherine drawing out stories from both of them. Emma watched in fascination as Daniel gradually relaxed, showing glimpses of the man he must have been before loss hardened him. He spoke about his company's charitable initiatives, his plans for sustainable housing developments, his hopes for leaving a positive legacy. When a nurse came to announce the end of visiting hours, Catherine hugged Emma tightly. I'm so proud of you, she whispered. Then, to everyone's surprise, she hugged Daniel too. Welcome to the family, she said simply. In the elevator, Emma found herself fighting tears again. Daniel noticed immediately. Are you all right? Happy tears? She assured him. It's just seeing you with her, hearing you talk about the babies. She took a shaky breath. It felt real, like we really could be a family. Daniel was quiet until they reached the car. As James held the door, he finally spoke. When Rachel died, I thought that was it. No more family. No more connections. It was safer that way. He helped Emma into the car, then slid in beside her. But your mother? She reminds me of what Rachel always said, that safety isn't the same as living. And what do you think now? I think, he reached for her hand in gesture that was becoming familiar. I think I'm ready to start living again. The admission hung between them, heavy with possibility. Emma leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling his tension ease at the contact. The baby's moved today, she said softly. Just little flutters. Too early for you to feel yet, but Daniel's breath caught. What did it feel like? Like butterfly wings. Like possibility. His hand tightened around hers. Thank you, he whispered, for sharing this with me, for letting me be part of it. We're in this together, Emma reminded him. All four of us now. As the car wound through the evening traffic, Emma felt something shift between them. Trust deepening, walls continuing to crumble. Her mother's approval had changed things, making their arrangement feel less like a contract and more like what it was becoming. A family, unconventional, but real. That night in her apartment, Emma found a delivery waiting. Inside was a pair of tiny stuffed butterflies perfect for a nursery. The note read simply, "For possibilities. D." She placed them on her bedside table, a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful things in life come from unexpected arrangements and hearts brave enough to try again. 4 months into the pregnancy, Emma woke to an urgent craving for strawberry ice cream. It was 2 a.m., and the twins were apparently hosting a dance party in her expanding belly. She tried to ignore it, tossing and turning in her bed, but the craving persisted with remarkable intensity. Her phone lit up the darkness. Without thinking, she dialed Daniel's number. Emma? His voice was alert despite the hour. Is everything all right? Are the babies? They're fine, she assured him quickly. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have called. It's just, she felt foolish now. I'm craving ice cream. There was a pause, then what sounded like a soft chuckle. What kind? Strawberry, but really I'm fine. Go back to sleep. I wasn't sleeping, he admitted. Too many thoughts. James will be there in 15 minutes. Daniel, you don't have to. 15 minutes, he repeated firmly, then hung up. True to his word, 14 minutes later, Emma's buzzer rang. But instead of James, she found Daniel himself at her door, clutching several bags from an all-night grocery store. I wasn't sure about the brand, he explained, looking almost sheepish as he entered her apartment. So I bought all of them, and some other things you might want. Emma watched in amazement as he unpacked his bounty onto her small kitchen counter. 6 different brands of strawberry ice cream, fresh strawberries, whipped cream, chocolate sauce, and an assortment of pickles and other traditional pregnancy cravings. You really didn't have to do this, she said, but her voice was thick with emotion. Daniel paused in his unpacking. I wanted to. He glanced around her apartment, taking in the pregnancy books scattered on the coffee table, the ultrasound photos on the refrigerator, the tiny butterflies still watching over her bedside. I've been thinking, that sounds dangerous, Emma teased, opening one of the ice cream containers. Move in with me. The spoon froze halfway to her mouth. What? Daniel ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture she'd come to recognize. Your lease is up next month. The penthouse has plenty of space. It would be more convenient for appointments and safer and… Daniel. Emma set down the ice cream. Are you asking because of convenience or because you want me there? He met her eyes, and for once didn't try to hide behind practicality. Both. I want you there. I want to be there for everything. The cravings, the kicks, the sleepless nights, all of it. Emma felt the babies stir, as if responding to the emotion in their father's voice. It would change everything, she warned. The boundaries we set have already changed, he finished. You know they have. He was right. Their careful arrangement had evolved into something neither of them had anticipated. Weekly dinners had become daily check-ins. Business-like updates had transformed into long conversations about hopes and fears. The wall between transaction and connection had crumbled bit by bit. What about Rachel? Emma asked softly. Her things, her memories, are part of who I am, Daniel acknowledged. But they're not all I am anymore. These past months you've helped me remember that. He moved closer, his hand reaching out to rest on her belly. Let me do this. Let me be part of every moment. As if on cue, one of the twins kicked against his palm. Daniel's eyes widened in wonder. Was that your son or daughter saying hello? Emma smiled. They're usually active this time of night. You never told me. I didn't want to bother you with everything, he interrupted. I want to know everything. His hand stayed on her belly, feeling the movements beneath. Move in with me, Emma. Let me take care of all of you. She looked up at him, this man who'd started as a business arrangement and become so much more. In the soft light of her kitchen, with ice cream melting forgotten on the counter, he looked nothing like the cold CEO who'd first proposed their deal. Okay, she whispered. His smile, real, unguarded, beautiful, lit up his entire face. Yeah? Yes. She covered his hand with hers where it rested on her stomach. But I have conditions. Of course you do. His tone was fond. I keep my job at the hospital. Part-time only, he countered. And no night shifts. I get to decorate the nursery. Within reason. His eyes twinkled. No neon colors. And, she hesitated, then forged ahead. You have to let Rachel's memories be part of this. Not as a ghost between us, but as part of our children's history. They should know about her. Daniel went still, emotion flooding his features. Finally, he nodded. She would have loved that. Would have loved them. His voice roughened. Would have loved you. Emma felt tears spring to her eyes. Damn pregnancy hormones. The ice cream's melting. She managed. Daniel laughed softly, reaching for the forgotten container. Can't have that. Our children need their midnight snacks. They ended up on her couch, sharing strawberry ice cream at 3 a.m., his hand never straying far from her belly. They talked about nursery colors and baby names, about Catherine's improving health and the logistics of moving. But mostly, they talked about the future, not the carefully planned one of their original contract, but the messy, beautiful, unexpected one taking shape between them. As dawn began to paint the sky, Emma found herself dozing against Daniel's shoulder. We should get some sleep, she murmured. Stay here, he said softly. I'll have James bring the car around noon. We can start packing then. You have meetings tomorrow. They can wait. He pulled her closer, one hand still protectively cradled against her stomach. This is more important. Emma fell asleep to the sound of his heartbeat, the twins finally quiet within her. Her last conscious thought was that some business arrangements turned out to be divine intervention in disguise. In the early morning light, Daniel watched her sleep, marveling at how his carefully ordered world had been so beautifully disrupted. The contract that was supposed to protect his heart had instead opened it wide, letting in love in its most unexpected form. He sent a quick text to his office canceling his meetings for the day. Then, careful not to wake Emma, he began making lists, things to move, rooms to prepare, life to embrace. The sun rose on a new chapter, one written not in legal terms but in the language of family, of hope, of love rediscovered. The penthouse had transformed in the 2 months since Emma moved in. Touches of warmth appeared everywhere, soft throws draped over leather chairs, family photos mingling with modern art, and fresh flowers brightening stark surfaces. The nursery, still under construction, was becoming a testament to compromise, with its elegant gray walls adorned with whimsical butterfly motifs. Emma stood in what had become their kitchen, watching the sunrise paint Manhattan in gold. At 6 months pregnant, the twins made her movements slower, more deliberate. Her hospital shifts had been reduced to consultations only, though she'd fought hard to maintain even that level of independence. You're up early. Daniel's voice came from behind her. He wrapped his arms around her, hands settling on her growing belly. Everything okay? Just thinking. She leaned back against him. The babies were restless last night. His touch immediately became concerned. Should we call Dr. Chen? No, it's normal. Emma smiled at his protectiveness. They're just running out of room in there. The domestic peace of the moment was interrupted by Daniel's phone. He checked it with a frown. Lawrence needs me at the office, something about the Richardson contract. Go, Emma encouraged. I have my checkup this afternoon anyway. Just don't forget about dinner with Mom tonight. She's FaceTiming from Switzerland. Daniel kissed her temple. I'll be home early. Promise. After he left, Emma wandered into their bedroom to dress for the day. The walk-in closet still held a section of Rachel's clothes, preserved behind glass doors. Daniel had offered to remove them, but Emma had refused. These were part of their story now, just as she'd insisted. As she reached for a maternity dress, something caught her eye, a small box that had fallen behind one of the shelves. Curious, she retrieved it. Inside was a collection of newspaper clippings all about Rachel's accident. Emma's nursing instincts kicked in as she read the details. Something wasn't adding up. The official report cited brake failure, but the description of the crash pattern suggested something else. Her medical training highlighted inconsistencies she might have missed otherwise. Her phone buzzed. A text from Catherine. Treatment going well. Can't wait to see you all tonight. How's Daniel doing with the nursery decisions? Emma smiled, but her mind was still on the clippings. Why had these been hidden? And why did the official story feel wrong to her trained eye? At her afternoon appointment, Dr. Chen was pleased with the twins' progress. Both babies are developing perfectly. Would you like to know the genders? No, Emma said firmly. Daniel and I want to be surprised. As she left the clinic, Emma found herself drawn to the public library. Her medical background gave her access to detailed accident records. What she found made her blood run cold. The brake lines in Rachel's car hadn't failed naturally. They'd been cut. Emma sat back, her hands shaking. The investigation had been closed quickly. Too quickly. Someone had wanted the truth buried. But who? And why had Daniel hidden these clippings instead of pursuing justice? She was so lost in thought that she nearly jumped when her phone rang. It was Daniel. Hey, I'm heading home early. How was the appointment? Fine, she managed. Everything's perfect. There was a pause. Emma? What's wrong? She closed her eyes. Of course he could hear it in her voice now. They'd grown too close for pretense. We need to talk. About Rachel's accident. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, his voice came back, tightly controlled. What about it? I found the clippings, Daniel. And I did some research. The brake lines. Stop. His tone was sharp, frightening in its intensity. Just stop. I'll be home in 20 minutes. Don't do anything else. Don't talk to anyone. The drive home was endless. Emma paced the penthouse, one hand rubbing her belly as the twins sensed her agitation. When Daniel finally arrived, his face was a mask she hadn't seen in months. Why didn't you tell me? She demanded. Someone murdered her, Daniel. Why did you let them get away with it? Because she was pregnant. The words fell like stones in the quiet room. Emma sank onto the couch, understanding beginning to dawn. The brake lines were cut before you announced the pregnancy. Someone was targeting you, weren't they? Through her? Daniel's composure cracked. He looked suddenly older, haunted. If I'd pursued it, if I'd pushed for the truth, they would have revealed what really happened. The media would have splashed it everywhere. That she was pregnant, that I'd lost not just my wife but my child. I couldn't. His voice broke. I couldn't bear for her to become just another headline. Emma moved to him, taking his hands. But the person responsible is still out there. No. His voice was hollow. He died 6 months after Rachel. A convenient accident of his own. The man who ordered it made sure all loose ends were tied up. You know who it was? Daniel's laugh was bitter. Of course I know. Raymond Maxwell. My biggest competitor. The contract she'd helped me secure would have destroyed his company. So he destroyed my life instead. Emma felt sick. And you've kept this inside all this time? Carrying this alone? I had to protect her memory. And now, his hands moved to her belly, terror evident in his touch. I have to protect all of you. Maxwell's son runs the company now. If he knew about the twins, about you, that's why all the security, Emma realized. The private clinics, the careful schedules. You're not just being overprotective, you're scared. Terrified, he admitted. History has a way of repeating itself, Emma. I can't lose another family, I won't survive it. Emma pulled him close, feeling his shoulders shake. Listen to me. We're not going anywhere, but no more secrets. We face things together now. I should have told you before the procedure, before any of this. You deserved to know what you were getting into. Would it have changed anything? She took his face in her hands. Would it have changed how we feel now? The babies chose that moment to kick forcefully. Despite everything, Daniel smiled, placing his hand over the movement. No, he said softly. Nothing could change this. As night fell over the city, they sat together in the nursery's rocking chair, plans and promises flowing between them. The butterflies on the walls seemed to dance in the fading light, symbols of hope and transformation even in the darkest times. We'll protect them, Emma whispered. Together. Daniel held her closer, his voice fierce with determination. Always. No more running from the past. No more hiding from love. Outside their window, Manhattan glittered with possibilities and dangers alike. But inside, in their carefully built sanctuary, a family forged in unconventional circumstances grew stronger with each shared truth, each conquered fear. The twins moved again, as if adding their own promise to the moment. Whatever came next, They would face it as one. The first signs of trouble came on an ordinary Tuesday. Emma was reviewing nursery color swatches when Daniel burst through the penthouse door, hours before his usual return time. His face was ashen, his usual composure shattered. "We need to leave. Now." He was already moving toward their bedroom, pulling out suitcases. "Pack only what's essential." "Daniel?" Emma struggled to rise from her chair, her 8-month pregnant body protesting the sudden movement. "What's happening?" He paused just long enough to press a kiss to her forehead, his hands trembling as they cradled her face. "Maxwell knows. About the twins, about you. Everything. Someone at the fertility clinic leaked the information." Cold fear gripped Emma's heart. "How bad?" "He sent me this." Daniel handed her his phone. On the screen was a photo of Emma at her last doctor's appointment, followed by a simple message: "History repeats. Clock's ticking. I've already called the pilot. The jet's being prepared." Daniel resumed his frantic packing. "We'll go to the house in Switzerland near your mother. Maximum security, completely off the grid." Emma caught his arm. "Stop. Just stop for a moment." She pulled him to face her. "Running won't solve this. He'll find us eventually, and I won't spend my life looking over my shoulder, teaching our children to live in fear. Emma, please." The desperation in his voice broke her heart. "I can't lose you. Any of you. Then we fight back. We expose him, expose everything. It's not that simple. The evidence from Rachel's case may not be enough for court, but it's enough for leverage." Emma's mind was racing. The press would love this story. Prominent businessman's pregnant wife murdered, evidence buried, now threats against a new family. Daniel stared at her. "The publicity would be exactly what I tried to avoid with Rachel." "Yes, but this time we control the narrative. We honor Rachel's memory by bringing her killer to justice, and we protect our family by bringing everything into the light." The twins kicked forcefully, making Emma gasp. Daniel's hands immediately went to her belly, his touch gentle despite his obvious fear. "We'd need absolute proof," he said slowly. "Something Maxwell couldn't deny or bury. Like a confession?" Emma's voice was steady. "From the man himself?" Daniel's eyes widened. "No, absolutely not. You're not going anywhere near him." "I won't have to." Emma reached for her phone. "But I know someone who can get close enough." She dialed a number she knew by heart. "Mom, remember that favor you said you owed your old friend at the FBI?" The next 48 hours passed in a blur of activity. Catherine's connection proved invaluable, a senior FBI agent specializing in corporate crimes. Within hours, an operation was in place. Maxwell's son proved to be his father's weakness. When presented with evidence suggesting his father's involvement in Rachel's death, the young man's loyalty crumbled. He agreed to wear a wire, to ask the questions that had haunted him since taking over the company. Emma and Daniel watched the video feed from a secure location, their hands clasped tightly as Raymond Maxwell finally revealed the truth. His confession was complete. The order to kill Rachel, the covered-up evidence, the current threats against Daniel's new family. His arrogance made him careless, believing himself untouchable as he bragged to his son about destroying his greatest rival. The arrest made headlines across the country. "Corporate titan arrested for murder of rival's pregnant wife," splashed across every network. But it was the follow-up stories that truly captured public attention. The tale of Rachel's tragic death, of Daniel's years of silent grief, and of the unexpected love story that had given him a second chance at family. Emma sat in their bedroom, watching Daniel give a press conference from the penthouse's secure media room. His voice was strong as he spoke about Rachel, about justice delayed but not denied, about the power of love to heal and transform. "My wife's death left me broken," he told the cameras. "I thought closing myself off from love was the only way to survive, but life had other plans." His eyes found Emma through the video feed. Sometimes the greatest gifts come in unexpected packages. "Rachel taught me how to love. Emma taught me how to love again, even through fear. Our children will grow up knowing both their stories, one of tragic loss and one of hope reborn." The twins moved restlessly, responding to their mother's emotions as she watched the man she loved finally step fully into the light. No more shadows, no more secrets. Later that night, as they lay in bed together, Daniel's hands protectively cradling her belly, Emma felt peace settle over them for the first time in weeks. "I was so afraid," Daniel whispered into the darkness. "Not just of Maxwell, but of feeling this much again, of having so much to lose. That's what makes it precious," Emma replied, covering his hands with hers. "The risk of loss, is the price of love. Rachel knew that. She lived fully, loved completely. We honor her by doing the same. The press will die down eventually, he mused. But people will always know our story now. The arrangement that turned into so much more. Good. Emma turned to face him. Let them know. Let them see that family isn't just about blood or traditional paths. It's about choice, about courage, about hearts brave enough to try again. One of the twins delivered a particularly strong kick, making them both laugh. These babies, conceived in clinical precision but grown in growing love, were their miracle. Their proof that sometimes the most carefully planned arrangements could lead to the most beautifully unplanned outcomes. I love you, Daniel said softly, the words still new enough to carry weight. All of you. Emma kissed him, pouring all her own love and faith into the gesture. Outside their window, the city lights sparkled like stars, witnesses to their unlikely journey from contract to connection, from arrangement to family. Maxwell would face justice, Rachel would have peace, and their children would grow up knowing the full story of how they came to be. A tale of loss and redemption, of careful plans transformed by unexpected love. In the quiet night, surrounded by the family he'd never dared hope for again, Daniel finally let go of the last of his fears. The future stretched before them, not carefully controlled but beautifully, perfectly unpredictable. The first contraction hit during a quiet Sunday afternoon at home. Emma was in the nursery, folding tiny onesies while Daniel assembled the second crib, insisting on doing it himself despite his obvious frustration with the instructions. At 36 weeks, they thought they had more time. Daniel? Her voice was calm despite the sudden pain. I think it's starting. He dropped the screwdriver, all color draining from his face. It's too early. Twins often come early, Emma reminded him, years of nursing experience keeping her steady. Remember what Dr. Chen said? After 34 weeks, another contraction cut off her words. This time, Daniel was beside her in an instant, supporting her weight as she breathed through it. That's too close together, he said, panic edging into his voice. They shouldn't be this close yet. Emma felt something else then, a warm gush of fluid. My water broke, both of them. She met his eyes. Call Dr. Chen. These babies aren't waiting. The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Daniel's security team moved with practiced efficiency, securing routes to the hospital while James brought the car around. Dr. Chen was already on her way to the private birthing suite they'd arranged months ago. In the car, Emma focused on her breathing while Daniel made calls. To Catherine in Switzerland, to the hospital security team, to their lawyers monitoring Maxwell's case. Though he'd been denied bail, they weren't taking any chances with security. Daniel, Emma caught his hand between contractions. Put the phone down. Be here with me. He stared at their joined hands, fear naked in his eyes. The last time I was in a hospital for a birth. This isn't then, Emma said firmly. We're safe. The babies are coming and everything is going to be fine. The birthing suite was ready when they arrived, Dr. Chen waiting with her team. As they helped Emma onto the bed, she noticed Daniel frozen in the doorway. Mr. Harrington? Dr. Chen prompted gently. Would you like to stay? Emma held out her hand. Daniel, I need you. Those 3 words broke his paralysis. He moved to her side, his grip on her hand almost painfully tight. The next hours were a testament to strength, Emma's physical endurance, Daniel's emotional courage. Between contractions, she talked him through his fears, even as she battled her own pain. Tell me about Rachel, she gasped during one particularly hard contraction. Tell me what she would say right now. Daniel's laugh was watery. She'd tell me to stop being an idiot and focus on you. She always said I got lost in my head too much. Smart woman, Emma managed before another wave hit. The first baby arrived just after midnight. A boy, his cry strong and healthy. Daniel cut the cord with trembling hands, tears streaming unashamedly down his face. He's perfect, Dr. Chen announced. But we're not done yet. Baby B is ready to join the party. 17 minutes later, their daughter made her entrance, slightly smaller than her brother, but just as vocal. The room filled with the sound of new life, 2 distinct cries joining to create a symphony of possibility. Would you like to hold them? The nurse asked Daniel, who looked terrified at the prospect. Emma watched as he gathered their son in one arm, their daughter in the other. The sight of this powerful man brought to his knees by 7 pounds of life in each arm would stay with her forever. Hello, he whispered to them. I'm your father, and I promise you'll always know how loved you are. As the medical team cleaned up and monitored Emma's recovery, Daniel brought the twins to her bedside. Together they marveled at tiny fingers and rosebud mouths, at the way their son had Emma's nose, and their daughter had Daniel's chin. "They need names," Emma said softly. Daniel nodded. They'd discussed options but waited to meet the babies before deciding. Now, looking at their son's serious expression and their daughter's fierce grip on his finger, he knew. "Benjamin," he said, "after your father." Emma's eyes filled with tears. Her father, lost to cancer when she was young, had been Benjamin Mitchell, a man who'd taught her the value of standing up for what mattered. "And for her?" she asked, touching their daughter's cheek. "Hope." Daniel's voice was thick with emotion. "Because that's what she is. What all of you are. Benjamin and Hope Harrington." Emma tested the names. The twins seemed to settle at the sound as if recognizing themselves. Later, as Dawn painted the hospital room in soft light, Catherine's voice came through on video chat, crying happy tears at her first sight of her grandchildren. Even through the screen, her joy was palpable. "They're beautiful," she said. "All of you are beautiful together." The security team remained vigilant outside, but in this moment their little family existed in a bubble of peace. Daniel had pulled a chair close to Emma's bed, still holding Hope while Emma nursed Benjamin. "Thank you," he whispered as the babies drifted to sleep. "For what?" "For making me brave enough to love again. For giving me them. For being you." Emma reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining just as they had that first day in the clinic. "Thank you for letting me in. For trusting me with your heart." Outside the window, Manhattan was waking up to another day. But in this room, time stood still, marked only by tiny breaths and newfound dreams, by the beating of hearts that had found their way home in the most unexpected way. Benjamin and Hope slept on, unaware that their very existence was a miracle of healing, a testament to love's power to transform even the most carefully planned arrangements into something transcendent. Daniel looked at his family, the woman who'd brought him back to life, the children who embodied both memory and hope, and felt complete for the first time in years. This wasn't the ending he'd planned when he'd first proposed his pragmatic arrangement. It was infinitely better. 1 year later, the Harrington penthouse buzzed with quiet celebration. Benjamin and Hope, now walking with determined wobbles, explored their world with fearless curiosity. Their first birthday party had been a small affair, family only, just as Emma had insisted. Catherine, finally cancer-free, sat in her favorite armchair watching her grandchildren play. Her recovery had been as miraculous as the twins' story, a testament to second chances and modern medicine. She'd moved back to New York 3 months ago, taking an apartment just blocks away. "Penny for your thoughts?" Emma settled beside her mother, watching as Daniel chased the twins around the living room. His laughter, once so rare, now filled their home daily. "Just remembering that day you first told me about your arrangement," Catherine smiled. "Look how far you've all come." Indeed, the changes were profound. The penthouse, once a monument to solitude, now overflowed with life. Photos of Rachel shared wall space with family portraits and the twins' artwork. The strict CEO had become a father who thought nothing of wearing butterfly wings to make his daughter smile, or spending hours building block towers with his son. Daniel caught Hope as she toddled toward him, swinging her high while Benjamin clutched his leg. "Dada," they chorused, their favorite word. "Hard to believe this all started with a contract," Emma mused. "Oh, sweetheart," Catherine patted her hand. "It started with love. You both just needed time to admit it." The doorbell rang and James entered with a familiar box, the one that had once held Rachel's memories. Daniel had finally decided it was time. "Are you sure about this?" Emma asked as he set the box on the coffee table. "They should know their whole story," Daniel said firmly, "both the happy and the hard parts." Together, they began creating a memory book, Rachel's photos beside new family pictures, her story woven into their own. The twins would grow up knowing about the brave woman who'd first taught their father to love, and the unexpected journey that had healed his heart. "Look what I found." Emma pulled out the tiny baby shoes, the ones Rachel and Daniel had bought, now worn by both Benjamin and Hope. Sometimes life comes full circle in the most beautiful ways. Daniel wrapped his arms around her, watching their children play. "I thought I was just securing my legacy," he admitted. "Instead, I found everything I never knew I needed." The twins had discovered the butterfly decorations from their first birthday cake, their delighted squeals filling the air. Hope's dark curls matched her father's, while Benjamin's gentle eyes were all Emma. Speaking of legacy, Emma turned in his arms, her smile mysterious. "I have something to tell you." Daniel's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Are you—" "8 weeks," she confirmed. "No contract required this time." His kiss was tender, full of joy and promise. Catherine discreetly wiped away tears as she gathered the twins for their afternoon nap. Later that night, after the children were asleep and Catherine had gone home, Emma and Daniel stood at their bedroom window. The city lights sparkled below just as they had that first evening in his office. "I found our original contract today," Emma said softly, "while we were organizing the memory box. And I couldn't help but notice we fulfilled every clause, just not in the way we expected." Daniel smiled, his hand resting on her still flat stomach. "The best agreements are the ones life rewrites for us." In the nursery, soon to be renovated for 3, the butterflies still danced on the walls. They'd become a symbol of their family's transformation, from careful planning to beautiful chaos, from business arrangement to boundless love. The lawyers had long since filed away the contract that had brought them together. Its terms seemed almost quaint now, trying to contain something as uncontainable as love within legal parameters. "Do you ever regret it?" Daniel asked suddenly. "Taking that risk with me?" Emma thought of their journey, the careful beginning, the gradual thawing, the strength they'd found together. She thought of Benjamin's laugh and Hope's determination, of Catherine's recovery and Rachel's enduring legacy, of the new life growing beneath her heart, created this time in pure love. "Never," she said firmly. "Some arrangements are just destiny in disguise." The twins stirred in their sleep, as if agreeing. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, first words to celebrate, wobbling steps to catch, another baby to prepare for. But tonight, in the quiet of their home, Emma and Daniel held each other and marveled at how the simplest business proposal had blossomed into life's greatest gift. Outside, Manhattan's lights competed with the stars, but inside, their own constellation shone brighter. 2 hearts that found each other in the most unexpected way, 2 children who healed ancient wounds, and a love story that proved sometimes the best things in life can't be contracted, only discovered. Their family wasn't built on traditional foundations, but on something stronger: choice, courage, and the kind of love that transforms everything it touches. As they headed to bed, Emma paused at the twins' door watching their peaceful sleep. "Thank you," she whispered to whatever fate or fortune had brought them together. Daniel's arms slipped around her, his touch full of tenderness and promise. No more contracts needed, no more arrangements required, just love, in all its messy, beautiful, unexpected glory. The story that began with a business proposal had become an epic of healing, hope, and the courage to love again. And as they fell asleep that night, their hearts beating in sync, they knew that some arrangements were simply destiny's way of bringing souls together, one carefully planned step at a time. The end. If you were in Emma's shoes, would you accept such a complex deal that involves bearing a child for a stranger in exchange for saving your mother's life? What if that deal ended up revealing dark secrets from the past that could put your life and the lives of your babies at risk? What if you were Daniel Harrington, after losing your pregnant wife in an accident that was actually a murder? Would you have the courage to open your heart again and start a new family, even knowing that this could attract the attention of the man who destroyed your previous life? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.